Hey guys, this is Minishcap1, your favorite samosa delivery driver Singed, here to show you my current favorite way of playing Singed. Alright guys, so in the last few months, a bunch of different stuff has changed for Singed. Celerity from the sorcery tree got nerfed pretty hard, and Time Warp Tonic from the inspiration tree got absolutely gutted. Thankfully in 8.24b, they reverted a health nerf that happened to Singed in Season 7. They raised his base health from 580 to 610, and they reverted the fling nerf from mid-season 8, increasing the level 1 fling damage back up to 6%. People are going to be asking in the comments, what about Summon Airy? What about Aftershock? What about Unsealed Spellbook? And what about the new Conqueror? The reason I'm not using Summon Airy is because Singed cannot use the shielding portion, the base damage has been nerfed for him twice, and the scaling has also been nerfed on it. Unsealed Spellbook by itself is still a very good rune. The problem is that the minor runes and inspiration, mostly Minion Dematerializer and Time Warp Tonic, have been pretty much nerfed into the ground for Singed. Aftershock has that same problem, where the keystone itself is good, but the runes that accompany it, the minor runes, are just really not that good anymore. They've all kind of slowly been nerfed over time, and the new runes that we're going to be using are just better right now. And because I know people are going to bring it up, what about the new Conqueror, Minishcap1? Yes, the new Conqueror in theory could be very good. The problem is Singed is a very, very slow stacker of it, so it ends up only really being good against tanks. If you play Conqueror versus a Conqueror, Bruiser, or a Fighter, they're going to get their Conqueror up twice, maybe even 3 times faster than you do, and you're going to take a shit ton of damage staying in the melee range of them trying to auto attack them. Same thing applies in a team fight, where your poison fling auto attack can only get 3 stacks, so you still have the question, well, I have to get 2 more stacks somehow. Do I stop an auto attack and then kite, or do I just auto attack 2 times? Well, if you do either or, you're probably going to get hit by some skill shots, some CC, take a bunch of extra damage, and you're going to die. Even if you were to buy a Proto Belt or a Hex Tech Gunblade to get 1 extra stack, you still have the question of, hey, I need to stop and get 1 more stack, what do I do? So that's why I think this rune is really only good versus tanks, because tanks are lower burst damage, and their ability to kill you before you can get Conqueror up is a lot lower. And when a tank isn't present in a team comp, the overall team's potential burst damage is much lower, so you have a higher chance of getting Conqueror up. The only problem is, no one's really playing tanks right now. Everyone's playing bruisers and fighters and assassins, so there's really, in my opinion, no point in playing Conqueror, because the rune, whenever you play against better players, is generally not usable. So my current rune setup is Domination primary into Sorcery secondary with a keystone, Dark Harvest. That's right, Dark Harvest, just like when Minishcap1 is proxy farming behind the enemy top lane's tower. So why is Dark Harvest good? Dark Harvest, outside of accurately describing a proxy farming Indian Singed player, it deals higher meaningful burst damage to low health targets compared to Summon Airy. It scales harder with AP, scales with itself as well, and it also resets on killer assist, meaning that you can dominate team fights with Poison and Dark Harvest resets. So the next rune is Taste of Blood. Basically, every 20 seconds, whenever someone touches your poison trail, you heal for a little bit. Why am I taking Taste of Blood over Cheap Shot? Not only am I trying to avoid fiscally responsible stereotypes about brown people, I am not building Rylai's first. This means that Cheap Shot has less value since I won't be proccing it constantly off cooldown. The next rune is Ghost Poro. Ghost Poro does 2 different things for Sin, which are very important. Whenever you or a Ghost Poro is placed in enemy territory, you gain a small amount of AP. You can place the Ghost Poro in any bush on the map, but if you leave it in a bush on the enemy half of the map, you keep that AP bonus when you are not in the enemy half of the map. So what you do is you get behind the tower when you're proxying, and then you kill a wave, then you put the Ghost Poro down, then after you recall or execute, you will actually maintain that AP buff for the next 300 seconds until your Ghost Poro times out, during which time you can actually go back and place another one and refresh it and just maintain the AP buff. And it also gives you vision, which is good. So the last rune in Domination is Ravenous Hunter. If Taste of Blood is your early game healing, Ravenous Hunter is your late game healing. This rune will not heal you for shit in the early game, but as you get more AP and you get more stacks in this very, very high kill meta, this rune can end up healing you for just ridiculous amounts. I've gotten games where I've gotten 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, 13,000 healing from Ravenous Hunter into the late game. You're not going to notice it early, but you definitely will notice this late game, and it's very, very good. Secondary runes, we have Nimbus Cloak and Celerity. Not much to say about Nimbus Cloak. Overall, amazing Singed rune. You pop your ultimate, you go even faster. Celerity, if I'm going to be honest, it's still pretty shit, even though they increased it to 10% from 8%, but there's nothing better here to take, and Celerity does synergize still pretty well with Singed Ultimate, Nimbus Cloak, and Shurelya's. So for the shards, we're taking double AP and 1 armor, AP to farm minions early, and 1 armor rune to tank minions while proxying. Alright, let's go over items. The first item that I complete in-game is Leandri's Torment, to symbolize the torment that my parents feel whenever they realize that their son is a Twitch streamer and not a doctor. Leandri's Torment is also a much higher damage spike item-wise than Rylai's, so we're going to go Leandri's first because in the current meta, damage is king. My second item is Sorcerer's Shoes. Sorcerer's Shoes is more important than Merc Treads or Ninja Tabby in the current meta, because in the current meta, even the small amount of tankiness that you would get from Merc Treads or Ninja Tabby will not keep you alive long enough for you to be able to deal more meaningful damage. Sorcerer's Shoes has very good synergy with Leandri's Torment. In addition to this, magic penetration is very, very important for Singed. It used to be that we could get magic penetration from runes and masteries and Leandri's Torment and Abyssal Scepter. We can, however, no longer do that. Magic penetration was removed from Leandri's Torment, Abyssal Scepter was removed from the game and replaced with Abyssal Mask, magic penetration was removed from runes, and masteries no longer exist. Third item is Rylai's Crystal Scepter for the slow. The slow will also synergize with Leandri's Torment to give the increased burn damage. Fourth item is Shirelia's Reverie. It gives health, movement speed, CDR, and ability power, and the Engage, which is a wonderful little AP replacement for RG. Fifth item is Zanya's Hourglass. You build a stopwatch, then you build that into a Zanya's Hourglass. The reason why this is very, very important right now is because of the invulnerability, obviously. Invulnerability is the strongest form of tankiness in League of Legends right now because damage is so very high. Even with tank builds, you tend to die kind of fast. So the best way to not take damage is to just not take damage, and invulnerability does that for you exactly. Your last item is a choice between Morellonomicon, Banshee's Veil, and Rabadon's Deathcap. Morellonomicon if the enemy team has a lot of healing, Banshee's Veil if the enemy team has a lot of magic damage or abilities, and Rabadon's Deathcap if you just need a lot of extra hitting power. I would suggest Void Staff if the enemy team has stacked a lot of MR, but generally in solo queue if the enemy team has stacked that much MR, it's because your team has a full AP comp and they need to itemize MR, at which point you've probably already lost the game. Starting the game, you want to buy your Dark Seal and refillable potion and try and find a level 1 proxy. If you can find a level 1 proxy, good. Go ahead and farm the first wave and then place your Ghost Poro in one of these circled locations. If you cannot proxy the first wave, if the enemy top laner scouts you or they deny you your proxy, then go ahead and push the lane normally and attempt to proxy waves 2 and 3. General tip when proxying with this build, you have two goals. You want to either gank mid from behind, or you want to kill the enemy jungler whenever you find them in their jungle. The enemy top laner generally should not leave their tower to fight you unless their jungler is there, so they have the incentive to go for a gank on you. So if the enemy top laner leaves tower to attack you, odds are enemy jungle is there. Pop your ghost immediately if you have any suspicion that you're being ganked, and try your best to get out. Use your ultimate as well if you need to. How do you transition into mid to late game with this build? The typical problem with Singed here still exists in that he is really good at farming minions, but he's not so good at pushing towers. So generally you're going to want to push the minion wave and then run towards your team to group and then try and team fight over an objective. And if nothing happens, go back to your top lane, push a little bit, don't push all the way in, just push enough minions to get it pushing towards the enemy, and then go back to your team, group for objectives, and then you kind of just want to rinse and repeat that. Obviously there's a lot more nuance to it that I could make an entire separate video over, but for the purpose of this guide, generally push a little bit, group, go back when it pushes back, push a little bit, group, go back when it pushes back, and if a fight breaks out, you're going to be able to just, it plays like a typical standard normal Singed team fight. Just bear in mind that you are a little bit squishier and your damage output is way, way, way higher. So think of yourself as the carry that also is a little bit beefy but not extremely tanky. And lastly, for those of you wondering, why exactly does this build work? Well, like I said before, damage is very, very valuable in this current meta where everything dies very quickly and tankiness is much weaker than it has been historically in League of Legends. Healing as well kind of has the same issue with damage where it's a lot stronger than most other things, and it's a lot stronger than it has been historically in League of Legends, at least individual champion healing is. So if damage and healing are very high, Singed actually has the ability through his rune page that we're running right now to have decent damage and decent healing. Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter both scale pretty well with AP to give you healing. Dark Harvest also scales well with AP, and it scales with itself. And because you're focusing on a damage-oriented build, you can treat yourself as much more of a carry and allow yourself to have more of a game impact, because we're carving out a way for Singed to be played in a meta in a fashion that is not very typical. This is a very atypical Singed build, but I genuinely do think that this is probably the best way to play him right now. That is my current quick and dirty Singed guide. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments, and I will try my absolute best to answer them. And I hope you guys will be able to tune into my Twitch streams. I'm streaming full-time regularly on twitch.tv/Minishcap1. I hope you guys all have a great day.